Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin Johnston. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Bloom Intelligence, and it's my pleasure to spend some time with you this afternoon discussing customer service recovery for restaurants. At the heart of customer service recovery really stands the question, what causes customers to be either satisfied or dissatisfied in the first place? And the simple formula for satisfaction in any endeavor is the degree to which your experience differs from your expectations. If your experience is more than your expectations, obviously we'll have a positive experience or we'll be satisfied with that experience. On the other hand, to the extent that our experience does not live up to or meet our expectations, we're filled with dissatisfaction in our experience. When we look at what can cause customers to be satisfied or dissatisfied in a restaurant, they really break down into several different categories. And this is familiar terrain to all of us. It can be a server error. It can be the responsibility of the kitchen, whether they made a mistake with the recipe, they prepared the wrong dish, whether the order took too long, or whether they just made a mistake with the order itself. Different from cooking the recipe differently, they actually made a mistake with the order. And then, of course, there's that whole category of environmental factors that just makes guests less than ideally comfortable in our restaurants, whether it's noisy, whether it's too warm, too cold, whether there's an odor that's disagreeable, or if they find bugs in the restaurant, or even worse, in their dish. But the key for us, if we're aiming to control and ultimately reduce the number of things that cause dissatisfaction among our guests, is to systematically identify and categorize those elements and then address the most common issues that we're finding in our stores. You can only improve what you can measure, as you know. And so it starts with measuring the degree to which each of these becomes a factor that impedes our guests' ability to be satisfied in our restaurants and systematically address those issues. Like many things, prevention is always the best medicine. Rather than wait for these problems to crop up, which typically happens because we're not listening to our customers, it's better to head off these issues early by soliciting feedback early and often. And this is really where so many of our practices stem from, isn't it? Where we have the servers first and foremost after they've delivered the meal, stop back to make sure everything's okay, and then some period of time through the meal. At mid to upscale restaurants, we like to have a manager go by and check and make sure that everyone's enjoying themselves. And that simple act, first of all, of checking back to give them a chance to voice their concerns, but really more fundamentally importantly, giving guests the opportunity to recognize that they've been heard, even if they had no concerns. That simple action is quite often what serves as a relief valve for guests to share with us how their experience is going. Secondly, as mentioned on the previous slide, we want to promptly address any server or kitchen-related issues. So when we identify that a particular server or a particular process in our kitchen or a particular environmental factor is causing issues to crop up on a regular basis, it's really incumbent upon us to address those. And finally, specifically related to dishes, it may be that a particular menu item or couple of items on our menu are causing more complaints than others. In those cases, we either need to get those off the menu if we can afford to do that, or at the very least make sure that servers are describing them more thoroughly in order to reduce the chance that guests order something that they won't like. Frequently, the guest will read the menu description, they'll think it's something that sounds of interest to them, and yet when they order it, the dish is not what they believed it was going to be. And if we look at our menus, especially in the mid to upscale non-chain restaurant environments, we can point over time to some dishes that have held that category. Those are the things we really need to either do a better job explaining at the front end through the menu and through the server, or just eliminate them from the choice altogether. So this is Jan Carlson, and Jan is a former CEO of Scandinavian Airlines, or SAS Airlines, Scandinavian Air Systems. And Jan says, we only earned the opportunity to win a customer for life when the customer has experienced a problem and we have resolved it to their delight. He says we only have the chance to win them for life when there has been a problem and we have resolved it to their delight. Um, Graphically, that really looks like this. If we think about a customer setting out to enjoy a meal in our restaurant, and then something happens, there's a service failure. Our first inclination to think that their experience will necessarily be less than those who did not experience the service failure, as depicted by the blue dotted line here. However, research has shown that in fact what happens when there's a successful service recovery effort put into place is those guests who experienced the issue and walked with us through that effective service recovery effort end up being more loyal than those who had never experienced a service failure in the first place. Isn't that interesting? So to Jan Carlson's point, when the guest has the opportunity to see that we care and that we can successfully resolve the issue to their ultimate satisfaction, they become more loyal than if that had never happened in the first place. Now, that does not mean that we should look for opportunities to have our services fail so that we can have the opportunity to bring them back from the brink. But it is a lesson that should remind us that a failure in a service delivery system does not need to be the end of that guest's loyalty. To the contrary, it can increase their loyalty. This whole phenomenon is known as the service recovery paradox. And it really is just as I described. It's as Jan said, when you've been through an issue together and you've successfully resolved that to the customer's delight, that's when you have the opportunity to have that customer for life. That's what generates that loyalty that makes them more a fan of your operation and organization than if you had not been through that situation together in the first place. So how do you build a customer-centered service delivery system? It's really very simple. Like anything else related to service delivery, it starts with hiring good staff. You have to make good staff selection at the front end. You're looking for people who will feel a sense of ownership and investment in the organization and are willing to handle things as if they were the manager, even if they're not. They're willing to take responsibility and own the areas of the operation for which they're responsible. Then you have to train them. You can't assume that even good staff are going to come in the door with all of the skills they need to operate in your environment and to do it consistently across service members on the front line. Finally, you have to have a complaints process. As I mentioned earlier, frequently we'll have our service staff go by tables after the last dish has been delivered and make sure that everything's to the guest's satisfaction. Quite often, in addition to that, we'll follow up with having a manager go by and ask the same questions, make sure that the guests are enjoying their experience in a more general way. And that complaints process, that opportunity for guests to vent and to share with you the things that are leading to their satisfaction or dissatisfaction, is a very important part of a total service delivery system. Because it's the ones you don't hear that really represent that bottom 9/10 of the proverbial iceberg, or in this case, they say restaurants get only 14% of complaints. This is from Jay Baer, as published in Food Service Magazine earlier this year. So if 14 out of 100 guests are giving us complaints, there are 86 guests who had a complaint but didn't either have the opportunity to share with us or did not share that with us even when asked. And there are going to be some who fall in that latter category. But this really underscores the importance of asking every guest through multiple means how their experience is unfolding and what can be done better to ensure that they're satisfied. Jay would say that the customers who give us negative reviews are really a significant opportunity for us. As such, we should offer them an incentive to visit us again. And so really think about what we're saying here. We're saying look for guests who give you a negative review online or in person if you're so fortunate, and incentivize them to visit us again. That incentive is not an inducement to change their review. It's not a request that they back down from what they wrote on Yelp, although we frequently wish that they would. It's an incentive to come back and have another experience, hopefully a more positive experience, which will then perhaps cause them to change their review or post a counterbalancing review for their subsequent visit. Again, the bottom line in this aspect is, are we listening to them? Are we taking the opportunity to really and truly understand what our guests value about our stores, what they're valuing about their experience, and to put that into practice in terms of improving the service delivery components that are failing to meet guests' expectations consistently? So when there is a service recovery effort to be undertaken, remember we looked at the categories of errors earlier on in the presentation this afternoon. If the error falls in the hands of the kitchen or in the restaurant in general, those environmental factors, the server is perfectly capable of handling those things. And that's really where good staff selection and good training come in. But if the problem really was because of that server, it's very difficult to send that server back to make amends, particularly if the situation became elevated and there was an element of hostility that had crept into the relationship because of the server's perceived incompetence or lack of caring or lack of understanding of the guest situation. Because of that, if the error really resides in and around the server, him or herself, it makes more sense to make sure that the manager handles that appropriately with the table. Teddy Diggs is executive chef of Il Palio up in Cary, North Carolina. And when you talk about comping a dish or a meal, Teddy is really not a proponent of that at all. He says comping devalues the quality of the food and the restaurant in the guest's mind and will almost always ensure that there will be no repeat business. You've really diminished the stature of what you deliver if you not only deliver a poor product, but then you give it away for free, ultimately comp it. A better way to handle the situation when it rises to a point where the meal, or at least a part of the meal, a particular dish or part of the experience might need to be comped, is to provide a gift certificate equal to the value of the meal. And this really comes back to what we're trying to accomplish with service recovery anyhow, which is to get the guest to return to the location, give them another opportunity to experience what it is that you have to offer, and see if you can meet or exceed their expectations that second time around. So by comping the meal, there's really no direct incentive for the guest or guests to return to your location, whereas by providing a gift certificate, there's a very direct incentive to get any value out of that gift certificate. They're going to have to return to the location, and that's ultimately what you're trying to accomplish with comping a dish or a meal anyhow. It's important to consider when you're comping the server or servers who have provided service to that table. Unfortunately, they're subject to some of the collateral damage from comping menu items or comping entire meals. If you lower the value of that final ticket, unless you are able to show the guest what the value of the service was based on the overall original ticket, then the server's direct compensation can be affected, because it's even a well-meaning guest may just provide their standard tip percentage based on what they see at the bottom line of the check. So help your servers out. If your point of sale system is able to show the final total and then net out any comps or promos, then at least the guests have that part of the math done for them. If the problem did not reside with the server, there should be no reason that they're going to penalize the server by reducing the value of their tip just because the part of the meal was comped. When you look at a platform like Bloom Intelligence, there are several touch points through which a system like Bloom can help with the service delivery effort. First, it can help you collect feedback through your Wi-Fi landing page while guests are still in the store. Second, it can help negative ratings and reviews be sent directly to management in real time, whether it's an issue with restroom sanitation or a favorite menu item that's out of stock or an environmental factor of another sort. Having that feedback go to management in real time may allow you to address that with that specific guest, as well as remediate that situation so that the experience can be improved for future guests. Third, being able to send automated reviews or ratings requests after a predetermined number of customer visits can help you sample the customer experience from time to time and make sure that you're getting consistent feedback across your entire guest base to make sure that the standards you are delivering are up to the standards you had in mind for your guest experience. Fourth, automating the service recovery procedure in the first place when guests leave a rating below a threshold you'll determine, and I'll show you what that looks like in a couple of minutes. Finally, closing the loop by seeking follow-up ratings and reviews after the service recovery process has been executed. So let's take a look at the Bloom Intelligence platform now and see how a platform like Bloom can address some of these issues. This is the Bloom Intelligence dashboard, what we formerly call the Analytics Suite. And a couple of things I'll highlight on here that really are germane to our discussion this afternoon. Number one is this average rating indicator that you can see for the period of time under consideration, in this case, the last 30 days, across 9 different customer locations in this small regional chain. They collected 167 distinct customer reviews and have received an average rating of 4.5 stars out of 5. So very simply, in this heads-up display on this dashboard part of the product, we're able to see how we're doing at a glance. Secondly, related to customer experience, of course, is the customer attrition or churn rate. Churn relates to the percentage of a previously stable customer base who may have stopped doing business with your restaurant during a period of time. In this case, for the month of July 2019, the particular 9 stores that are being analyzed here lost 5.92% of their previous loyal customers during the month of July alone. In isolation, this number means very little. Where it becomes valuable is when you look and compare that to previous periods. So if we compare it to June, for example, we can see it was slightly more than that. If we compare it to May, we can see it was slightly less than that. So you can get a sense of any trends that may be occurring, and you can systematically work on reducing your customer churn rate, which means reducing the percentage of customers that you're losing over a period of time due to possibly service issues. When you collect these ratings, whether the ratings are received on the Wi-Fi landing page themselves, as they might be here from one of our customers, Mex1 Coastal Cantina. Their Wi-Fi landing page includes this ratings device, which allows guests to answer anytime they're in the restaurant. This is only available while they're in the restaurant. They can provide a rating or review, add some feedback and potentially their email address, and this goes directly into the Bloom Intelligence system where it can be analyzed and sifted and sorted here. So we see all the feedback as it comes in, the comment. We can filter these if we wanted to just look for feedback that included, say, an email address but did not have a specific comment. This gives you a handy list of people who were clearly dissatisfied, and you can reach out directly to them to find out perhaps some more information about what made their visit less than ideal. When guests use your Wi-Fi, their profiles are developed over time and collected here in the guest profile section. So for this collection of restaurants, again, there are 9 stores considered here. We'll go ahead and look at all time, and we'll consider only guests who had visited the store more than 5 times. Okay, so we're looking at all guests here. There are a total of 2,110 in these 9 locations who had visited over the life of those restaurants with our system. As we open these up, if we drill into one of these a little further, we can see the type of data that are collected automatically about any individual guest. We have the guest's name. In this case, I'm assuming she's a she, has not yet provided her gender. We have her email address. We do not yet have her birthday, but we have her zip code. We know her first visit was in May of this year, and she attended most recently in July of this year. She usually comes on Fridays, but most commonly Saturdays, and she's been one time on a Wednesday. This particular guest visits this location later in the evening, sometimes as early as 8, but frequently up to 11 p.m. She's received an email from the location, but has not yet redeemed any offers associated with that. And we can see this is the location she's visited 7 times. She's currently predicted to be at medium risk of being lost as a customer, meaning given her 7 visits between these 2 dates, we would have expected her to have returned to the location by now, but seeing as she hasn't, we're getting a little concerned. This indicator in a few days' time will flip to high risk of churn likelihood, and then ultimately to churned, meaning that Allie is being recognized as a lost customer. What do we do to help you reach lost customers or customers who've provided a poor rating? Our automated marketing suite has 2 main components. One is the message listing, and the other is the campaign module. In the message listing, one of the things we can do, for example, with Mex One Coastal Cantina, is create an offer if they've had if they've been absent for a period of time. So that guest we just looked at, Allie Wood, who's recognized as being at medium risk of churn, when her indicator finally hits high risk of churn, Mex One may have set this to go to her automatically so that it can try to woo her back and have her regain her loyalty with the location. In the cases where there was a service failure and we're actively trying to recover that guest because of a poor rating that they provided, Atlanta Bread Company, another one of our national accounts, chose to offer a free cookie. So when a guest provides a poor rating, either through the landing page or by having received an email and provided a rating in response to the email that they received this free cookie offer that they can bring into the location and redeem. Let's take a look at the triggers and the campaign part of the Bloom Intelligence platform. Creating a new campaign is really a very simple point and click exercise. We create a name for the campaign and a name for the promotion. And we choose from a variety of triggers here. I'm going to focus in on the triggers that relate to the subject we're discussing today, which is really service recovery and at-risk customers. The at-risk customer trigger can be used, this one in particular, when our system identifies that a particular guest should have returned but has not yet returned. Bloom Intelligence can automatically send them a message at the moment that we believe they have churned or become a lost customer to try to regain their loyalty. Speaking of loyalty, an easy way to keep in front of guests and keep top of mind is to automatically send them a message every so many visits, perhaps every 10 visits, every 12 visits, reminding them that they're a valued customer and perhaps offering some incentive or inducement to make that next visit. And this really harkens back to the day of the old coffee club punch cards that we would keep in our wallets and present. And when we got 10 stamps or punches, we'd get that free cup of coffee. This is a highly automated, very efficient way of doing the same thing that really requires no action on behalf of the guest. They don't have to present a phone number or a user number or a membership card. Every time they come in, our system automatically recognizes that they were there and increments this and will automatically send the message when they get to the point that they have been there for the right number of visits. The upon exit trigger can be used to send a following message after every so many visits. So in this example, I've configured it to wait 2 hours after every 6 visits and send a message. Presumably this might be a message that says, thanks for coming back. We're glad you're still a loyal customer. Would you take a moment and provide a rating for us about your experience and the service you received today? So systematically sampling customers and gathering that feedback on a customer-wide basis. Again, not just your loyalists, not just those who signed up for your loyalty program, but across your customer base, getting that objective feedback can help you really understand the true sentiment of customers toward your service delivery. And finally, linking several topics we have been discussing this afternoon is the rating trigger. What this will do is watch for ratings below a certain threshold that you can easily set. So in this case, if the rating is less than or equal to 1.5 out of 5 stars, then this will wait 3 hours and trigger a message to be sent to guests asking them if they would come back and give you another try. Let's take a look at what that actually looks like. We'll just leave the campaign promotion period open for here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll apologize for their bad experience. I'm going to pull up that same Atlanta bread example we looked at a couple of moments ago. So we're sorry for your bad experience. Here's a free cookie, and they can come in and redeem that. Terms and conditions so that you can make sure that this offer is not shared and abused by providing, forwarding this to 100 friends and having everyone come in. This will only work one time. When they come back, the neat part is our system knows that, and we can automatically send them this follow-through message to say, hey, thanks for coming back. Your happiness matters. Please rate your experience this time. So now if you think about it, we've got bookend ratings, don't we? We've got a rating at the front end, which was clearly substandard. They gave us a rating of 1.5 stars or fewer. That's how this trigger got fired in the first place. We then sent them that message to say, we're sorry about your bad experience. Won't you come back and try us again? And when they came back and tried us again, whether or not they used the coupon, by the way, we knew that, and we could send them this to get that other bookend rating to make sure that their subsequent experience is at least somewhat better than their previous experience, if not exceptional. So that's a brief overview of the Bloom Intelligence platform and some of the capabilities in the system that are specifically designed to help you get a handle on service recovery and saving at-risk customers. But the platform offers a whole lot more than just those things. In fact, it's an entire intelligence engine and marketing hub that can be used for a variety of real-time messaging and customer engagement purposes. Whether or not guests use your Wi-Fi system, just coming into your location, we can deliver everything in this first column. All of these presence analytics and dashboard key performance indicators are things that we can show you even if they do not engage with your system. Once they begin to engage, we can start populating their individual customer profiles with much more detailed, rich customer data, phone numbers, zip codes, birth dates, genders, et cetera, so that we really can help you understand who your customer base is and how you might market more effectively to them. Finally, once we have those customer profiles developed in the system, the marketing suite becomes of tremendous value because it allows you to set up those triggers that we just reviewed, as well as some of the other capabilities of the Bloom Intelligence platform to automatically engage with those guests, even without immediate direct interaction or intervention on behalf of your staff. I'd encourage you to contact us at sales@bloomintelligence.com if you'd like to learn more about the Bloom Intelligence platform and how that might be used in your locations to help automate customer service recovery and the development of an effective at-risk customer program. Again, my name is Robin Johnston. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Bloom Intelligence, and it's been my pleasure to spend some time with you this afternoon. Thank you very much.